All right. Well, we're ready. Thank you so much. And good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining Corporate College's webinar series, Live with the Experts. We really look forward to providing relevant information, tools, topics, everything to support you during these difficult days. We find so many businesses are shifting to a new reality of remote working and learning. And so at Tri-C, we are committed to serving you during this time of rapid change by providing actionable resources, those things that can really help you and your team succeed and thrive wherever your team is located, whether they're still in the workspace or working remotely. Our webinar series is one of Corporate College's newest resources to prepare the workforce to overcome challenges and achieve personal improvements as well as business goals. Our series focuses really on 4 themes, with today's session focusing on working remotely. Other sessions that we offer will focus on virtual leadership, navigating a transition, and even personal health and well-being. So as many of you know, Corporate College has very distinguished and wonderful talent bench of facilitators and subject matter experts. And today I'm so pleased to introduce our presenter and facilitation specialist, Dr. Sandra Vogel. Dr. Vogel has joined our talent bench because of our shared mission to really work with the entire workforce, employees, teams, and work on business performance. Dr. Vogel has a very distinguished background, and just to name a few accomplishments to put things into perspective, uh, Dr. Vogel's in the Cincinnati area and is a strong member of the board of the Greater Cincinnati ASTD, has achieved Ohio SBA's Women in Business Champion Award, also been recognized as Innovator of the Year at the International Conference E-Women's Network, and as a result of that, is now the founder of the E-Women Network there in Cincinnati. So congratulations, Dr. Vogel. But while all of that is fantastic and we're very excited, she's been there and done that. She has directly supervised frontline operations, marketing teams, customer service operations, performed competitive analysis on sales and customers, and recruited, created, and managed an entire training and education department for a Fortune 500 company. And we're couldn't be more pleased to present her to you today. So with that, I will turn this over to now Dr. Vogel. Welcome and good morning, Dr. Vogel. How are you? Oops, I'm sorry, Dr. Vogel. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you so much. It's good to be here with everyone. And I'm excited about continuing this conversation. Janine Sergey and Sarah Barrett, yes, Bartlett, I think, they set the stage for today's information by talking about remote teams and your ideal work self. Today, we're going to dig deep and we're going to go into really the emotional thermostat of your business, of for you, maybe even for your family. So today, this is not just about crisis. This is also about when change happens, when conflict happens to you, to your business, and even your relationships or your family. So my first question really is to you, what are some of your challenging situations that your thermostat is probably going up really, really high? And maybe you've got challenging people. I want you to keep that in mind. Now, some of you, when the challenge or the crisis occurs, you may go from 0 to 10 immediately. And so you see that hot thermostat. So for those of you who are at a 10, I want you to go ahead and tell in the chat box so Jerry can collect this. I want to find out what your current emotional thermostat is. Now, on the other hand, there's some people that they don't get hot. They get more reserved, sometimes to the cold, freezing, and removed and isolated point. If you're at that point, you can tell us if you're hot or cold and what your number would be from 0 to 10. 0, of course, is the most freezing on that thermostat, with a 10 being not so bad. So our middle number here, it'll be really interesting to see. Oh, I've got some people already telling us they're cold. You're cold. Thank you. And some of you are hot. And Geraldine, you're going to collect that data.
Yes.
Why we collect the data, I just want to tell you how I happened to start working on this topic of crisis and communication and conflict in an organization. I was called in to a company to help because their executive was at the 10. He was constantly hot and yelling and screaming and cussing. And for those of you that are in human resources, you may say, well, that's zero tolerance. We would never tolerate that. I want you to know this was an inventor. He was and is a genius. He was so good at what he did, but what he didn't do so well was probably managing. So sometimes the genius level person can't be the best manager. And he continued that behavior to the point where people were probably wanting to leave the organization. I was called in to help coach them, and I found that I had not seen this kind of environment in and day out operations. I mean, in my lifetime, something that was this critical. And they were backed, this startup was backed by venture capital, by angels out there that were waiting for a product to go to market. And the resources they had working on this product were incredible. We're talking scientists, chemists, lawyers, wealth of talent. And they were really being abused in this constant hot situation. I started researching more to find out what else I could do to help them. I came across a resource, Dr. Mark Goulston, and I'm going to share a lot of information from him. And Dr. Goulston, as I listened to his tapes and I got his materials, he just presented such clear plans of how to calm yourself in crisis, calm yourself in hot situations, getting through to people. I love the material so much. I contacted Dr. Goulston on LinkedIn and we became connections. And so many of you probably have done that. And you may have even done that before you got deep into your profession. I encourage you to keep doing that because here's what happened next. I asked Dr. Goulston over LinkedIn, do you have any training materials on handling crisis and change and people just being crazy? And his response was, he did not. And thereupon my response was, would you like some? And that led from a situation of how to handle and how to help others to really stepping in and creating a class. And then that class, Dr. Goulston and I ended up going to New York and working with the American Management Association to produce his class called Just Listen. So Dr. Goulston is an expert. He's an expert on listening. He's a business consultant. And it was just such a pleasure to learn some of these techniques that I had not heard about before that we want to share with you today. Dr. Goulston has even negotiated with people that are ready to jump off of a building or ready to take people hostage. And he does that by leaning into them and listening. So the book Just Listen is the first book that I really went for. And here's the other thing that happened after while we were working on this project for Just Listen and bringing the training materials to life. He was getting ready to produce his next book, Talking to Crazy, and I had the privilege of helping edit that book also. Now, I'm going back to Jerry in our chat, and we're having quite a bit of information. Jerry, do you want to report in for
Sure,
us here.
sure,
Okay.
absolutely. So it's surprising. We have really kind of a dumbbell effect with a large portion, about 40% on the cold side, and another 40% on the hot, with just a few right in the middle. But what was even more interesting, Dr. Vogel, is a few people even reporting how they find themselves fluctuating between hot and cold.
Okay. Okay. And you know what? That makes sense. That makes sense. Don't even feel like you're abnormal because what's going on right now, and with the change and the crisis and the climate we're living through, um, it can cause you one day to feel a certain way and another way to feel another way. Plus, the fact that so many professionals are now working remotely that haven't had that opportunity before. And I call it an opportunity. They may not see it quite that way. So, thinking about that, since we have people on both sides, we need to dig in. And on the extreme, I want you to think about what do you get out of being crazy? And let's just address that first of all. When people get crazy, there's an adrenaline rush. And you've probably been in situations at work where someone's fighting for their position at the table, or maybe you're fighting, and the voices go higher and higher, and the pushing starts. And it can be vocal, or in other cases, with some people, it can get physical. All right. Now, with that in mind, what's going on is your brain also is on overdrive. And I'm going to say that some of the things that you may have tried don't work. In fact, what I found was some of the training I received earlier, where you call a person by their name and you try to help them settle down. Let me give you an example. I was on a hot conversation and this person was going crazy on the phone with me. And here I am, I'm doing my professional thing. Karen, Karen, settle down, settle down. That's what happened. Karen went crazy. She went crazy, screaming and yelling at me and hung up on me. Well, speaking softly, addressing someone by their name, that's not cutting it. What do I need to do? Because I obviously have got to do something. I'm not going to change her, but what can I do to change myself and my approach when I'm confronted with conflict, crisis, and change between people? I will say, I did call her back later and did what Dr. Goulston calls the power apology, which we need to get into later. What do you get out of being calm? Well, it's something interesting because you get some satisfaction about not going over the edge. And that is so satisfying. You get this feeling of I managed that. So to give you an example, I'm out on a plant floor and doing training for manufacturing. And every day I have a group of plant employees in my room for 4 days talking about being a better team. And I have this young man that is just weird. And in my class, didn't obey any of the ground rules. In fact, started almost cussing me out from the moment the class started. So now I'm in crisis. Everybody's watching me. So as a facilitator, I do my normal facilitator thing. And then later, I went out on that plant floor to meet with him one-on-one. And I asked him, hey, can we talk? And I was really calm because I had processed all of this. Do you think he said yes? Let's talk, Sandra. Let's have that conversation. No, he didn't at all. He looked at me and said, no. No, no, I don't want to talk to you. You've got issues. I mean, really? I've got issues? So deep breath again. And I was doing the best I could to go through the process that I knew so well of calming another person down. And I said to him, so you don't want to talk right now? No. And, he almost spit on me. That's how bad this thing was. But I want you to know something had changed in me because I was using the techniques. And I walked away and I said, you know what, Sandra? You rose above as a leader because what I did was I circled back on the conflict in a moment where I had already processed what was going on. So I'd taken that deep breath, I'd taken the time to think things through versus responding and reacting. At that moment, I knew I wasn't defeated. I walked away and said, "You did everything you could. You were ready to apologize and claim your part in anything that disturbed him." And so that made me feel like, as a leader, I set myself apart. And here's the end result. As I circled back with this person, what do you think happened in the room the next day when we were all together? He didn't say a word. No complaining, no criticizing, no contending, no confronting, all the things that get me going. I don't know what gets on your nerves. And you know what I realized was, because I was brave enough to circle back while I was calm, it somehow changed how we saw each other and the situation. And I think it calmed him back down. And I was ready to talk with him at any moment that he wanted a one-on-one. But he never asked for it. I want you to be able to be calm in these crisis situations. I want you to be able to think about the other person. And sometimes, as some people in our chat say, I get a release from crazy and calm, and sometimes more cray-cray with family and more calm with employees. Thank you for putting that in the chat, because that also can be me. When I'm doing my professional thing, I can be more calm. But when I'm with relationship situations, people that emotionally I'm very connected to, that's when my cray-cray can come out. We're going to be working on ourselves today. We've now acknowledged Dr. Goulston. We're digging in, and I want you to know that these crises are when the SOS signal is going out. It's an opportunity, really. You may not think about it, but you may have to think through this as an opportunity of who needs to know what first. Who will respond to who? And in fact, even not only in your business, but in your family. And to be credible as crisis goes on in your business, in your departments, as leaders, you need to be honest. You need to be transparent. You need to be urgent in a plan to build an action first so that people know that you're on top of it. But before you can do that, you do have to calm yourself down. And so what we want to take a look at as you're calming yourself down is the fact that how are you communicating in this crisis? So let's take a look at this. What do people really want to know during a crisis? Take a look at this triangle. They want to know about themselves. Every one of us during crisis, we've sat back and said, how is this going to impact me? What about my job? What about my family? How is this going to change all the things that give me food, clothing, and shelter, the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which many of you know all about? Now, this is 70% of what people are waiting from you, for you to communicate to them. But what do we give them? I'm going to tell you, this triangle is reversed. What we give them at the top is company branding messages, and specific little information is divulged about different departments or divisions in a company, or even in what's going on among people. It's not specific enough. What I really appreciated about the comments on remote teams was the challenge to build trust and to call people and to do your one-on-ones if you're a department leader, if you're an organizational leader. And believe me, there are CEOs of gigantic companies that are making these phone calls. And by showing their face, presenting themselves, then guess what the people take away? They're building trust because they're being authentic. They're reaching out, and they are also doing what I call the listening pose, ready to listen, not just fire off the company message and be that guy that could be the brand of the day or the taste of the day or the month. I want you to think about yourself in your current crisis, your situation, your business, your work, your family. What are you doing to assure people? And first of all, I would like to hope that you're starting with yourself. So, thinking about that, where do we need to go? Well, people are wondering, do you get it? They're looking at you. And as Dr. Mark Goulston would say, do you have a company awareness and do you get me? Have you leaned into me? So Dr. Goulston in the book Just Listen, he's telling people you've got to step back instead of pushing people. In your team meetings, in your projects, how can you ease the tension so that you don't push people? And so, with this in mind, with this pushing, what happens is my perspective about you can change. You know, I have a concept of who you are before the crisis, before the conflict, before the change. And my brain is now locked into a certain resonating time that I either resonate with you or I'm pulling back. Now, what can happen is with this pushing, it's like a rubber band. I can push you so hard that rubber band just snaps. And then what do you get? You don't get me. You don't care about me. Then the what? Energy goes up on that thermostat to the higher level. And then I have a gap in my mind about you versus when we were together, thinking together, mirroring each other, working together as a team. Instead of going crazy, we're thinking of options. Then our mirror neurons in our heads help me realize you appreciate me, you're adapting to me, and you care about me. When the mirror neurons are not aligned, the gap gets bigger and bigger. That is exactly what is coming across right now in our situation of crisis in this world and also in many companies. So the gap gets wider. And so you think you're being a very good communicator. You think that you're setting out the information. There's your thoughts, but other people are perceiving you differently. And so now you've got a gap. You may not even know that you have this gap. And that's what I would like for you to realize is you have got to step back from yourself under crisis and be ready. Be ready. You may even take a small group aside, your family, your friends, and have them tell you what they're seeing and hearing from you. Because I'm going to say, in crisis, you can't help anybody until you can help yourself. We've got to start with ourselves first. So your reality may be different from somebody else's reality as you're even communicating with them. Now, we are judging ourselves by our intentions. Other people judge us what? On what they see us do and hear us say. So your say-do ratio may be different. Don't try to baloney me about what's going on here because I'm watching you. All right? Now, thinking about that is your gap gets bigger. And what could be going on is the person you're communicating with may need to back off because they have to make sense from you. And if you're using technical language that a person is not familiar with, then they could come across as stupid and they get colder. They remove themselves even more. So the reality is changing. And with that, you're getting into your reptile brain, which is the fight or flight. That fight or flight then causes us to flee a situation freeze, or strike back. All right. Now that means our big brain, the brain that we want to be in, it's not having the ability to think through. And so we are feeling out of control and not safe. How many of you are feeling out of control or not safe? If you want to give us that information in the chat, we'll want to check in with you to find out. And you may want to put it on a scale. It's a scale from 1 to 5, and a 5 would be extremely out of control. A 1 would be unsafe. And I want to see your averages on that too. Wow, already some people are saying not safe. Interesting. Jerry's going to collect our numbers and see where we are. I want you to realize the reality is going to be so complex sometimes. People people can see same thing at the same time and have two different perspectives. And that's what's going on in this world, in the workplace, in your family. And when this happens, if I just stick to what I can see, I become more defensive. I get more angry. Uh, I have more panic, anxiety, and fear. And I don't pause and find out, what do you see that I don't? So here's one of the tips. When you're in a crisis situation, instead of going all the way up into hijack into the brain, could you possibly ask that person, hey, tell me, what do you see I don't see? Admit that there may be something you don't see. If you calm your tone down and lean in and listen, you're going to get a better communication. And you may not still be able to see it until they point it out. And even then, you may not see it, realizing that what is happening with people is they have filters. Filters are how they're seeing things through. Now, before we get into some of these filters, I want to hear Jerry. When you're ready, tell us what are you seeing here about the safety of our audience?
So, not surprisingly, really, given these times, Dr. Vogel, about 70% of everyone responding is on the 3, but mostly the 4 and 5 range.
All right. So they're they're not feeling safe, and I understand this. This is a situation that we're in right now that no one has experienced before to this level. All right, and we have things that are already hardwired that trigger us, and with that going on, we are thinking, why don't our leaders listen? But you know what? They're thinking about us possibly. Why don't you listen? All right. If you're the leader in your family, in your business, you may be thinking, why don't they listen? I'm asking you, why don't you listen? And we're having what? We're having the conflict here. And so let's point out some of the things that may prevent us from listening. So I want to know, what are some of your triggers? I want you to go ahead in your chat box and tell us what triggers you to not listen, maybe to turn off. I'm going to name a few, and I want you to give us some of your triggers. At work, a trigger for me has been when my work is not acknowledged or someone takes credit for my work. Sometimes at home, I'll hear a noise, and that can trigger my brain into crisis attack. Sometimes I'm hearing, people get loud in their voice. And so it could be something that triggers you from your past, that when people argue, or I see somebody saying your values are violated, or someone is out of our circle of trust. And boy, it can accelerate us because we see they're not operating with what? Integrity, the integrity that we want them to argue or to, to acknowledge. So what are you seeing, Jerry, as some of the triggers?
Oh, yes. So yes,
Look at
yes, we're
that.
seeing a number of them about mostly about how people are communicating to them, being loud, maybe disrespectful, not taking their thoughts and decisions into consideration, maybe even treating them like a child. So
Uh-huh.
a lot of it
Mm-hmm.
is really stemming around how people are communicating to them, even not even being acknowledged at all.
Yes. Yes. And then you feel undermined, undervalued, and not respected. which is all
Respected, even
about.
betrayed. You know, some of them are even mentioning how they feel even a bit betrayed.
Absolutely. And we can identify with those feelings, which then inside the brain, how can I even move forward? So we may get paralyzed. And you know what happens in these situations? People that go on the up, they may start pushing you even harder. Okay, so if I put my hand just against your hand and I start pushing you, what do? You push back, you upshift into the higher level. Now, other times you're creating resistance by even calming yourself down and maybe even being cold. So with this upshifting, we've got to take a look at what battle do we really want to fight? And what will be our part in the battle if we choose to accept it? So generally for conflict, for crisis, for change, these are high stakes moments. We think that someone or something threatens something we really care about. And here we go, going back to what your triggers are. When something is more about what you care about, your values, then the situation becomes even more intense and more discouraging. So I've got to ask you, what is your default and what have you planned for? I want to give you an example. In about January 2009, you may remember there was an airplane leaving LaGuardia Airport. The pilot was a guy they called Sully, and he was in an emergency. Both engines had stopped. And by the way, I've worked with the aviation industry, and they do so many tests on aircraft engines, um, throwing things in before an engine is approved. But for some reason, these geese got into these engines and both engines shut down. What was his default? No, he did not. He had been trained. He had a default, and the default was land the plane safely. Land the plane safely. And that's what I want to encourage you to do. I don't know what your plane is. I don't know what everybody's crisis is, but we want to see that plane land safely with very little collateral damage. Are you with me? And we now call that situation the miracle on the Hudson. He had to help people brace for the impact. You may have to help yourself brace for the impact. But I want you to start thinking, what is your default? And we've got to change some of our defaults, okay? So let's look at this. What is your normal default? Are you very outgoing, outspoken, reactive? And when you're pressed and there's crisis, conflict, change, do you go into high gear? Or are you more reserved? So you're more cautious and reflective. Maybe even to the point on the thermostat that you become cold. Now, I want to encourage you because look at this goalpost. It doesn't matter whether you're outgoing or reserved, you can still score this field goal. I want you to believe that. And something over the top, well, that's where I want you to start learning how to land that plane, okay? So we have in our chat box some people that are now acknowledging. They're like, Jerry, what are we seeing? We're seeing people becoming more, okay, more to both
Yeah.
extremes. We're seeing
Uh-huh.
default shutting down, becoming more detached. You know, in some cases, you have to just ignore crazy, don't you? Yeah. And then other people, you're defaulting to be more outgoing. Watch that thermostat on your own because what we want to do is realize that you need to stop hitting your head against that brick wall. And you need to find that loose brick, as Keith Ferrazzi says, and this man is just incredible in some of his books. So I want you to start opening the lines of communication, but you've got to open your mind first. All right, now how am I going to do that? That's what we want to get to. When you think about this, and some people are even in the chat box, what are they saying, Jerry? They get really hot when it comes to the passionate things they care about, like family
Right.
and the core values or what they should have, could have done differently. Now I want you to be thinking, what level of talking are you doing? And are you talking over people's heads? Are you talking at people and they're glazing over? Are you talking to them, having some time of dialogue? Are you really leaning in and talking with them? And talking with them requires what? Your emotional intelligence, your ability to be there. Now, there's listening too at the same time. And when I look at these things, I think about many of us. What we've done is we're just downloading information, and I have decided in some cases just to remove myself. I'll download the information, and then I'm going to sort through the facts, and then I'm going to react to keep myself safe. And then I'm able to do a little bit more responsible listening. But my mind and your mind, it's clicking through, trying to determine, is what this suggestion that this person is giving me going to keep me safe or not? And that's when the amygdala hijack can occur, and I want to fight again because I'm not hearing what I want to hear, right? I want to suggest that we have to turn it around to the listening and be careful if we're in reactive mode all the time. The woman in the grocery store with her child, the kid's crying and screaming, if she screams back at him, does that calm that child? No. You have to decide ahead of time in a crisis, no matter how big or how small, what you are going to be. I love this quote by Paul Brown. Many of us really have fond memories of him as a coach of the Cleveland Browns and the Cincinnati Bengals. The key to winning is poise under stress. Can you get through to yourself through first and then be able to move forward? Now, when you think about this, what Dr. Goulson has said is we need to be able to contain the panic. Can you contain your own panic? So we want to share with you the speed drill that Dr. Mark has worked on and shared with many groups, police officers, Navy SEALs, FBI hostage negotiators. And it's the OS to OK process. Now, I don't care if you say, oh, shoot, or what your words want to be that you can fill in. The very first step of getting yourself under control is facing it, the disaster. All right, right away, it's a disaster. Now, Scully on the Hudson, disaster. He knew. And did he default to cray cray? No. He went into, oh my gosh, this is a mess. I've got to, I got to clean this up. Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay. I've got to fix it. It's not going to be fun. I'm not going to let this ruin anybody's life. My options are, and then he re-engaged. And we're talking from 0 to 10 seconds, he went through the speed drill. So people like Navy SEALs, people that are well trained in this, they can go from 0 to 100 and calm it down. Most of us haven't had the training. So if you're going really hot or really cold, it's because you haven't gone through these phases. Now, this phase of re-engaging, you don't re-engage if you're still up here in the oh shoot mode. You may need to, in front of other people, say, I need a break. I've even said to people, I need an adult timeout. In fact, I'll tell my husband, give me to Saturday, I'm going to be complaining about this situation. Then if I don't shut up by Saturday at X time, you can call me on it. But I just got to get it off my head. All right. So it's cool. I put myself in my own timeout and I vent and I let the release go as much as I have to and I talk it out. What you're doing is releasing the brain. You're releasing your frustrations. Now, here's something, I've got other recommendations on this release phase. I'll even walk with my headphones on, and I have certain music that I use, which I'd be happy to share with you later on. You can find things like this on YouTube. And then I talk out loud on my walk. And this music is called EMDR, and that's a whole therapy where you're able to release whatever is going on with yourself. So this would require us to go through a whole lot of information just to get through some of this music, but you can find stress relaxation exercises also on YouTube. I like to speak my words out. listen and calm myself down while I'm walking. Guess what that does for me? It helps me with the adrenaline. I'm burning the energy because energy is the exchange of life. And when I asked you about what is your energy orientation, it, um, it really made me think also myself, energy is the currency of life. Don't let these crises, conflicts, and change steal your energy. Use this speed drill. Start using it to go from the zero to okay. Now, let me give you an example. All right, take a look at this. The example is, oh my gosh, I just hate it when they do that. And then, in your mind, you may be saying this. Then I just can't stand it when this happens, when things fall apart. Then you're taking a deep breath. Well, that's how they are. You know, one thing I've been realizing in the OG's recentering phrase, not everybody has the same emotional intelligence or situational awareness as you do or I do. Their brain doesn't necessarily operate in these situations. In fact, I have somebody that was having stress the other day in her life because her phone broke. And I'm like, oh, let me share with you how you can do messages anyway. She said, I'm too stressed out. Yeah, because she did not have a default. When stress hits, she enjoys and gets the rush of going up in her head and being in this, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Instead of, okay, I got to process this. I got to calm down and take the action to land my plane. So back to the example, no use being angry. I'm not going to waste my energy on that. I'm not going to give anybody the satisfaction to steal, first of all, my energy and to steal the joy that I want, which requires me to stay on track, which is a whole other conversation, before I can re engage. So these are the steps. And this is the first rule in getting through to yourself. This speed drill help you calm your emotional thermometer, cool it down a little bit, reduce some of the stress that you're feeling in crisis, in conflict, and in times of change. Your brain is wired. What will be your default? I want you to think about that. Now take a look at this. If you expect the unexpected, wouldn't that make the unexpected expected? That means your action is to examine your default under these stresses, decide what you're going to do about it, and then resist. So here are the 4 ground rules. Resist the urge to fight, relax your body and mind. If you need to, rehearse what you're going to say. And that's what I often do when I'm walking and thinking and actually going round and round in my brain. And then you're able to respond in a controlled manner. Now, even with a boss one-on-one at work, I've been able to say, and you can use this statement, I need time to process this, then let me get back with you. I'm going to repeat that. I need time to process this, let me get back to you. I can at least say that much before I go off crazy in my own brain. And believe me, I've had plenty of times when that has happened. I want us to take a look at the all the rules for re-engaging. And so we've covered rule number 1 pretty carefully. Rule number 2, of course, is the listening skills. We've touched on that. You can see some of the other rules, making others feel felt, and also recognizing and addressing some of the barriers. And the very last rule is steering clear of toxic people, which Dr. Goulson covers pretty clearly in Talking to Crazy in that book. Questions to you and to the audience. What do you get out of being crazy? Is it enough to stay in that mode? Are you enjoying it that much? And what could you do by being calm? What could you do differently? And what can you do now? What can you do now? Now, I do know, for production's sake, Jerry, this call will be recorded and downloaded, and everybody can get the information, and also the slides are going to be available.
That's correct.
And somebody is responding to us, you're drained when you're being crazy. So what else? What else do you want for your life? And are you going to give up that control? So I love some of the responses. The more crazy you get, the more crazy it seems to go, some of you are saying. So can you do some of these things using the speed drill and then your 4 ground rules? Resisting the urge to fight, which, by the way, animals don't have the brains we have. They will just go ahead in the lion's den and go for it. But you have a choice. You have a choice on your attitude and your behavior. What do you want to choose? You want to choose what? To be poised under pressure, like Paul Brown said. So I want to open up for questions, comments, and concerns. And Jerry, do you see anything that we need to really talk out here from the chat box?
Sure, sure. Sandra, so first of all, you have had a number of requests to share your music. So we'll have to get that playlist or information from you and get it out to everyone.
Yes.
But,
Okay.
so many people are talking about the difference between being calm and being cold. Can you maybe spend just a moment on that?
Okay. Okay. The coldness, and I'll demonstrate that to you, is something like when someone says to you, "Are you okay?" And you say, "I'm fine. I'm fine. Like, leave me alone." Okay. This signals the big gap in your mirror neurons with this other person, that you're not listening or asking questions or interested. So that coldness, that aloofness can lead to people not even wanting to communicate with you. If you are so stressed out in your position with your family or whatever that you're totally cold, you really probably need to take even deeper action. I mean, the suggestions I've given today only go so far. It could require that you need to have some deep reflection on what's causing you to be this cold. And a
Mhm.
lot of coaches can help you with that. You don't have to see a psychiatrist. You don't have to pay Dr. Goulston to talk to him about it. Um, so I want you to be able to realize the choice that you have and how could you just up it. I'm not asking you to go from total cold to, hot and hi, how you doing? We don't want you to not be authentic. We want you to be you. But if you remove yourself so much, you could be too distant to even be part of the team, part of the group. And so then you become more and more excluded. An easy thing for you to do just at meetings or whatever is ask one question. Make it a goal that you speak up at least one time. These kinds of suggestions are the things that I've been trying to help people with that have a voice and haven't been able to use it.
Sandra, I have a couple other questions that I think are really, really important. And the first one being, um, how do you help coworkers? So you've spent a great amount of time really helping yourself. How do you help coworkers who are stuck in the crazy?
Okay, I think that part of that goes back to the team, working with remote teams, even if you're not remote. Janine Sergey, in her communication with teams, talked about it yesterday. You need to set some ground rules and get the team together when there's no crisis or change going on. Now, right now, since we are all involved in kind of a global crisis, it may feel artificial. But if you don't listen to each other about what's okay and what's not okay, then the snipping and the disgruntledness and the complaining will continue forward. So, what I literally have done is I will draw a frame and I'll say to my team, what behavior is okay? Let's put that in the frame. What are things that are borderline? You put it on the out, and then what's outside the frame of being okay on our team? What
Mhm.
if you do it? It's going to cause us to be even more crazy. I would use that framing conversation with your team And if your team leader isn't in on this call, you can have that person listen to this conversation or get in touch with us so that we can help facilitate that conversation. Sometimes the people that are so involved in a workplace issue have a hard time being that neutral person to bring solutions to life. I've literally done this on a manufacturing floor, and those people that I worked with were so honest. They told me things like, we don't want people gossiping. We don't want to have people screaming. So what's okay and what's not okay, even though we are all in this situation together, we need to re-examine what's socially acceptable, what's going to work and what's not going to work. Confronting somebody is going to probably take that cray cray person to a higher level.
Right. And that's a great point, Dr. Vogel, and those are great tips to really help that person start to frame and build some control around that. Just another thought too, to add on to that is to really identify some other um, resources within the company or even outside the company. I'm sure a number of companies have EAP programs, the employee assistance programs. So don't feel like you have to take on all of that responsibility, but you're right, help them, help you maintain and start that framework, that control, and that bringing that calmness, and then, pointing them into some other resources. One other really quick question, only because this now goes to the opposite end of the spectrum, Dr. Vogel.
Yes.
So someone was asking, does always being calm cause stress too? Because not being able to release that in your that craziness every now and then, kind of let off a little steam.
Okay, let's go back to the speed drill. The very first step in the speed drill is you letting it out. My public persona and my private one, I'm going to let it out privately. So it depends on your situation. And there's statements that you can make to own your emotion too. Like with my family, I may be able to say things to them I wouldn't say in a business situation. I could say to them, hey, I'm getting really stressed out right now. Let's all get our coats on and let's take a walk. And frankly, when I was a manager, I would do the walk and talk exercise with employees. Let's get out of this building, let's walk and talk. And by doing that, I'm not having to face somebody head on and we can chat about what's going on. And then you're getting some adrenaline out also and talking about what are options to solve this problem, not getting heated or emotional about any one option. Now, also, I would like to say this material I'm sharing with you is copyrighted. This is Mark Goldston and my material at this point. Our preference is that you respect the trademark that we have on this material. You can look several things up on the internet and get things for free, but this presentation is not really to be distributed. I, I would caution you against that. I'm not trying to be threatening about it. Dr. Goldston and I have worked very, very hard at making a difference and making and marketing these materials in a way that is professional. So please just have that consideration for us. All right.
Absolutely, absolutely, Sandra. So we have a few minutes left, Sandra. Maybe time for maybe one more question.
Okay.
Um, so just and they're pouring in. Um, how do you prevent something getting ramped up like fear in an organization?
How do you prevent it?
Yeah,
Well,
that's a tough one.
I'm going to say right now that may be above my pay grade because I'm not God.
uh,
I think you've got to look at your organizational culture, which Janine Sergey mentioned in her remote team yesterday, is what are the agreements we're going to have with each other? And now going back to landing your plane, did we ever come up with a default for how we're going to act under crisis? Oh, it's easy to talk about it, isn't it? But now we're in it. An example would be how many of you have been through survival exercises, sitting at a table with other people, and at the end you had to choose which items you're going to keep or give away so you could survive. Well, guess what? Now we are in a survival situation, and we've got to have those skills that we're asking the quiet people, what do you see that I don't see? How, what would be better than what we're experiencing now? Because
Right.
the fear will only get higher as people that are cray cray get more fearful.
Mhm.
Now, I can tell you, you can tell from my voice, I am choosing not to do that. In fact, part of my choice is I choose how much news I listen to. At the beginning, I was listening to way too much. So I had to realize it was a trigger for me. Now, I have a place in my neighborhood I can go walking. I get out every day. I do not want other people to decide for me how I am going to be in my emotional life. I want to be joyful. I want to appreciate. In fact, I have this whole thing about flourishing. I want you to flourish also during this time. In
Mhm.
fact, I want to almost push it back in somebody's face and look how good we did, despite you, despite what that message was. I want to be happy. All right. And I encourage you to take that mindset and run with it. And we would love to come alongside you in this journey. Carrie, anything else?
So Sandra, I think this one last question would be a great one to close with.
Okay.
Because you've touched on so much of this, but someone was asking, especially now working remotely, getting that interpersonal communication, reading and seeing the body language isn't always, yeah, as easy as it used to be. It becomes much harder as the nuances are lost. Really, how
Yes.
do you suggest they address those types of things?
Okay, first of all, even on a video like this where you can see me, you don't hear totally my tone or my body language, although I'm pretty expressive so you can see it. Um, so how do you see it? You're not going to be able to. First of all, you've got to accept that. Now we're going to have to do other things maybe that you've never had to do before, which is actually address somebody and say, tell me, Joe, what are you thinking about? Hey, we haven't heard from Karen. Karen, tell us what you're really thinking. Be aware of using the word thinking versus what are you feeling. The worst thing you can do under these situations, I'm sensing you're feeling a little bit of frustration. Guess what you've just done? You've just put that emotion on somebody else. And they may not have. You can do the pause that Dr. Goulson recommends, which is, I'm sensing, Joe, you're feeling a little, what is it? And you get them to come forward with what they're feeling. First of all, start with the thinking. Let's start with what they're thinking. And if you need to go to feeling, you can ask that question too. Like, how do you really feel about this? What are you feeling? Are you feeling a little, can't put my finger on it? Then let them fill in the blank, as Dr. Golston would say.
Great, great, great words of advice. Thank you so much, Dr. Vogel. I can't thank you enough for being here today. A lot of the messages coming in also thanking you. And
Thank you.
I want to, yeah, I know you and I both want to thank everyone for joining the session today. We really appreciate it. It's great. We want you to make sure that you walk away, and it's great to know that you will now be better able to understand your triggers and really put that plan into place to keep calm, find that loose brick, and really land your plane. And remember, corporate college is also here to serve you with essential learning and learnings to overcome challenges that you may be facing right now. We offer those learnings in a virtual classroom setting and also self-paced online programs for those of you who do need to still work remotely. And our subject matter experts can really provide that organizational consultation services, training, and coaching. So look to us to really support you during this time. You'll find many of our virtual classrooms are already available online. You can see them on our website, our frontline leadership certificate program, things like our Lean Six Sigma, and even our patient access specialist program. So with that, I want to say thank you again, and feel free to re-watch this program and share today's presentation by visiting our Corporate College website in the next few days and then clicking on the free webinar series link. You can also stay up to date with us by following us on social media. So thank you again for joining us. Stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you again, Dr. Vogel.
Land your plane. Land the plane, okay? Thank you.
Yes.